friends and family, kith and kin. I'm grateful for your warm embrace. As our family,
Closer, Jack.
As our family, we kneel to you and express endless gratitude for your incredibly warm and needed outreach. Thank you. And we're so fortunate to celebrate one so deserving of these honors. I pray for your patience as I prepare to extend my heart. I am so grateful to my mom, Mrs. Jaqueline Jackson, for whom I am her namesake, for asking that I stand and serve beside her as one of my father's principal caregivers. I'm so forever thankful to our Lord for providing me with a much deeper bond with our siblings during these past months. I'd also like to take the time to thank what amounts to legions of friends and taxis and Uber rides to and from hospitals. I cannot express, really, the enormity of my gratitude for the round-the-clock security and our team of medical attendants whose numbers over the years have truly been quite massive, extending not only across this incredibly precious city, but quite literally across the nation, across the world. I had the distinct honor of feeding our Father and providing for several of the prescribed home therapies. And the like, while a formidable and dedicated team of caretakers tended to all variety of his growing needs. To that end, there's absolutely no way my conscience would rest without personally thanking Mr. Chris Hodges for befriending our dad's journey with unbelievable care, steadfastness, and a loyalty only comparable to the unduplicable Shelley Davis. And our very own Uncle St. Clair Booker, now deceased, who without a doubt, can never be displaced as our father's irreplaceable wingman. Last but certainly not least, I must thank Mr. Idris our senior caregiver, who frankly deserves high recognition for the dedicated and compassionate care he provided for my father. For years, he'd arrive on site to absolutely incredible and increasingly difficult tasks. He'd walk through the door in his princely way, and he'd exclaim so as to be heard by Dad some rooms away, "Good morning, sir. Good morning, Reverend. Dad's eyes, because I was there, Dad's eyes would just beam and occasionally tear. His chest would swell. Mr. Idris was unfailing in alertness to the growing constraints of Dad's physicality and the possibility of its threat to his personhood. I know this because I tried to take careful accounting of Dad's medical care. And in light of this habit of my own mind, I will forever be grateful for the depth of heart brought to his work. Some days ago, I asked Mr. Idris, and by permission of my family, if he would take me on the very longest walk I have ever withstood, and that was to see my father at Leake's funeral home. And because the moment exceeded my capacity, he and our brother, Mr. Stacy Leakes, of the wonderful Leake family, ended up having to support me as well. And now, if it's quite all right, I'd like to step well outside of character and share a few aspects of my own lifelong journey, usually kept under very close lock and key. In the interest of granting further insight into a human being unequaled by category, by quality, by kind, in national and international humanitarian contribution and parental impact, I feel some sense of conscience in this reveal. I'd like to share some of those memories that show Dad, the dad side of my father. During my early formative years, I experienced a great deal of difficulty, great indeed, with schooling.
It's okay, baby. It's okay, baby.
And in many ways, Dad assumed the charge for my home learning, teaching me letters and numbers. He taught me penmanship. He placed his hand atop mine and physically guided my hand, steadying his fingers along lined paper, whether printing block letters or looping letters in cursive. He introduced me to language and really the symbolic system itself. I also recall the sounds of the abacus. The beads would rise and they would fall along rods as we observed numbers being added and subtracted. He taught me to quantify. And following speeches, he'd return home and coach my vocabulary, asking whether I'd understood a particular word or a particular concept. Soon afterwards, he'd have me fetch Webster's, and then placing his index finger atop my own, we'd leaf. We'd leaf through the pages. Dad would make sure that my understanding was clear, so even while seated in congregations and among audiences, he'd repeat a given term or a given concept during a speech and discreetly integrate into call and response. He'd say, looking at me, "Get the point?" My father was actually an introvert. That's quite correct, and even a bit socially awkward. And for this reason was especially sensitive to my own introversion and my own studied ways. So when at home, he'd either call out, "Pooh," that's what he called me.
All right now, Jackie. All right now, Jackie.
"Little Jack." Jackie Pooh.
Take your time. Take your time. Take your time.
And I hadn't responded. And if I hadn't responded, he'd walk around, searching the kitchen cupboards or atop the refrigerator or under tables where I could be found. growing up, I'll confess that I could easily be found sleeping between my mom, my dad, and his yellow notepad, where he'd be penning his sermons, starting daily around 4 a.m. Of all of my siblings, I must confess, I slept with my parents for the very longest. At times, Mom would have to run errands and she'd buzz about and create. Dad would stay behind and he would create makeshift hammocks out of our linens. And he'd swing me round and round, or he'd place me on his head and he'd propel me about, playing airplane. During our legendary and unenviable Chicago snowfalls, he'd walk to my big sister's room or simply turn over where I could be found sleeping between he and Mom. He'd carry me down the stairs, it must have been 3 or 4 in the morning, to the front porch. And there, in the rocking chair, he'd look out the window and he'd say, "Now isn't that beautiful?" And we'd sleep until daybreak.
Don't do that.
I'm going to finish every word prepared. Every single word prepared from my father's homegoing service. Every member of this congregation is a member of our own family, and I hope very much that you understand. Later in life, he'd insist on coming to stores with me, and he would purchase school supplies, or he'd walk into pharmacies to stand in line with me, or we'd go to movie theaters to catch a flick, and it would be incredibly difficult for me. I'd suffer such incredible, unthinkable embarrassment because time with Dad outside of the house or disembarking from plane, train, or bus meant sharing time and enduring crowds and media attention directed towards us. So I'd rather wait my turn, I'd simply go away, or I'd evade the field of view of cameras. Pretty early on in my 20s, and now I am 50, I came to realize that the truth was that he was, in his own way, hitching a ride on my access to normal. And when I understood this, I'd whisper from time to time in his ear. If I cited what appeared to be a need, I'd say, "You ready for a getaway?" And we'd drive around the town, we'd walk about, or we'd secure a tour somewhere. I remember during my college years, or as I matriculated from one graduate school to another, he'd call, or he would arrive unannounced to check on me and my roommates. He was always the ear, never too busy to listen to hall gossip or to roommate chat or to minister to my or my roommates' personal lives or our academic difficulties. Over the years, we'd tussle ideologically, just for sport. He knew how well I enjoyed jockeying perspectives, and he'd participate gloves off. It was spirited and it was wonderful. He often involved me in speech, writing to hone my own perspectives, concepts, and to test my ability to summarize a spectrum of news developments. It was a lifetime of learning how to engage with civility and with honesty, whether as allies, whether as opponents, and always with openness to broadened vantage. Now, until February 16th, the eve of Dad's transition, I used to tell Dad absolutely everything. And he in turn would entrust his feelings about one thing or another, having to do with his person or regarding our larger life. For years, he literally called me every single day for as long as he was able to hold a phone. And now in retrospect, it became clear. It became clear that his symptoms had been developing and presenting over the span of many years. My dad would later be diagnosed with progressive supranuclear palsy. And prior to his diagnosis, he'd been experiencing symptoms of motor degeneration, which resembled Parkinson's disease. But early on, some many years ago, he became increasingly prone to quiet speech. We couldn't hear him well, and he would often trip while attempting to ambulate, while attempting to walk. Dad was already asthmatic, but breathing became further impaired, eventually affecting his sleep. His gross and fine motor abilities slowed. His arms, for instance, would extend in more measured ways. Phone dialing became a bit more arduous. The action of handling objects, grabbing and releasing, became more demanding, more cumbersome. His facial expressions, they began to flatten. His overall reaction time began to diminish. Routine tasks required a bit more effort. Phone calling became more labored, necessitating that all of us, all of our family, our broader network, become interpreters. I suppose I became especially good at that function, and many came to rely on me to carry his words through. These mounting occurrences were annoyances and at times embarrassments for him, but not embarrassments of a social variety. Instead, disappointments which disturbed his own sense of internal standards. His ability to communicate, thought itself, became compromised. And when he realized that his cognition was largely unaffected, his ability to think, his ability to process and conceptualize complex information and to generate novel ideas, it remained the same. My own background and training allowed me to rapidly assess the situation at hand and perhaps enabled my navigation through myriad conundrums posed by Dad's illness, which for me appeared to be its own mind-body dilemma. But it was the body, rather than the mind, that was largely affected, leading him feeling dissociated from his former self. And with this knowledge, I was committed to sustaining, enhancing Dad's sense of wholeness, in spite of the course of his illness. This began, I suppose, my own approach to developing a recovery plan which could integrate his normal intellectual life, his normal routines and enjoyments into daily life. Speech therapy required practice of vocalization and enunciation with alphabet and number recitation. And so we involved phone calls from our friends. Our larger family implemented house visits from many to prompt his continued engagement with the world around him. But all would participate. Siblings participated, grandchildren participated, cousins participated, scores of loved ones participated. I recall when his diet was relegated to puree, and my mother's response was, well, we're going to enlist pureed versions of Thanksgiving and Christmas cuisine every day. So Mom set foot to preparing 3-course meals freshly every single day. And I fed him deliberately, involving his own hands, so he'd purposely feed himself to feel buoyed up in his own autonomy. Very soon into this approach, he latched on and enjoying routes to a sense of independence. I share all of this with you in closing, to highlight my own awareness of my father's impact on me as a child, when he lay his own hand to write and coach my own relationship beyond my interior life into the larger exterior world through learning the alphabet and number, and while heightening my observation of details, I came to realize that our roles had indeed reversed. And all that he taught me as a child were the tools that I used to help him. But in the end, it came down not to tools, but simply the love for someone.
Come on, Jackie. Keep going.
Love for someone whose love could never be repaid. God bless you, Daddy. I honor you, Reverend. I honor you, Reverend. And not job well done. Job singularly done. God bless you.